First, I think we should maybe talk about like the $600, because there's been so many questions about, hey, do I get the stimulus package or the stimulus check? Is the $600 going to post to my account? As stimulus number 2 mandates, you must have an adjusted gross income of $75,000 if you're single, $150,000 if you're married, and $112,000 about that if you're head of household. If you make anything more than that, the amount of stimulus will decrease according to whatever that number is. So if it's if you're making $75,000 and you're single, that can go up to $87,000 before you get no check. So if you have any elderly, like my granny, she's on Social Security, gonna get a stimulus check. If you have any cousins, uncles, aunts, friends who are currently incarcerated, guess what? They're on the list to get a stimulus check. If you have kids, that's $600 per child living in your household that you can qualify for. So I wanted to make sure that people were they were aware of how they qualify. Now, how they send the stimulus checks. They're going to look at your 2019 tax filing, and they're going to determine what your AGI is, which we're talking about, your adjusted gross income. And they're going to make the determinations that way. If you receive the check the first time and you have not amended your taxes, then you can expect to receive the check again if it has not changed. Okay. I see a couple of comments where folks are talking about, what if I got pregnant? You know, y'all was busy during the quarantine, during the socially distancing, babe was coming over, sleeping over, got pregnant, have a baby. You can amend your tax filing. So it's a 1040X form. So you can amend that in order to update it and say that you now have a new dependent. Okay. So that's about the $600 stimulus check. Now, one of the things that I have been talking about, guys, is that I do believe, and I'm sure you all agree, that the tax code was set up for owners to win, and I believe employees to pay. So a lot of people were really upset about the $600. I mean, I saw memes, people flipping over tables, tossing hair, etc. I mean, just upset, right? Because you have millionaire people in Congress making these decisions about money that people need right now today. And what I've been telling folks is that $600, yes, is the stimulus check, but there's also tens of thousands of dollars that may be available to entrepreneurs with the economic injury disaster loan cash advance, with the Paycheck protection program, and with the $25 billion that have been allocated to be awarded to community development financial institutions. So I hope we get some time tonight to talk about that money, because I believe that money is the money that a lot of business owners, especially Black business owners, unapologetically need to pursue.
Let's talk about that. We can talk about that right now. Actually, I'm glad you talked about that, because somebody had asked me today, I make $200,000. Am I gonna receive a stimulus check? And I'm like, I'm not really sure. Let me look into it. I mean, so yeah, let's talk about. But before we talk about that, is there a cap on if you make too much money, you don't get the stimulus?
Yeah, so it's $75,000 going all the way up to $87,000. You don't get a stimulus check. But for those folks who are balling out of control, you say, I made $150,000 this year. The first thing I'm going to ask you is, do you own a business? I believe that every Black person, especially, even if you don't want to be an entrepreneur, should be a business owner because of the tax code that we just discussed. Why? Because the adjusted gross income, the AGI, is based off of your income after deductions. So personally, I would be asking, did you donate to charity? But from the business perspective, the specific question that I would be asking is, what deductions have you taken from your business that reduced your taxable income to the point where your AGI, your adjusted gross income, was $75,000? There's a lot of folks that may have made $250,000. Perhaps they had a business that did very well. When they listed their deductions, though, that reduced that income down to $75,000, thus qualifying them. So for business owners, especially, let's talk about one that we know that's going to be kicked out in a couple days. Y'all's president, Donald Trump. That's how he legally or illegally, I don't know your political position, ends up paying less than $1,000 in taxes, because his accountants are looking for the deductions. They're looking for the losses to reduce that taxable income. So if you made $200,000 and you didn't own a business and you didn't, your standard deduction or any other tax deductions that you took didn't reduce that liability, then no, you wouldn't qualify for a stimulus check. Now, we can talk about the business. We can definitely go there. The first thing that we could talk about is the economic injury disaster loan cash advance. And I am a huge proponent of doing research. I know that some of this terminology can be a little confusing because when you say cash advance, the first thing we think about is, oh, somebody's advancing cash. And what do we have to do, guys?
Pay it back.
Pay it back. But with the economic injury disaster loan, the economic injury disaster loan cash advance is equivalent to a grant in so much as it's equal to $10,000 that you don't have to pay back if in the event they approve the advance. And so a lot of folks, the first round, saw cash advance and disqualified themselves from an opportunity that might have been available to them. So I think that the first thing we should talk about is those folks who apply for the EIDL the first time, right? They saw cash advance and they were like, hold up, I did my research, right? We don't want to swim in an ocean of knowledge and drown in ignorance. So they pulled up the paperwork, they read it, and they saw that cash advance was equivalent to a grant. They applied, and after they applied, guidance was issued that stated that they didn't get the full $10,000 cash advance the first time. Instead, they were allocating $1,000 per employee. Okay. So if you had 3 employees, that was $3,000. If you had 2 employees, that was $2,000. You didn't get the full $10,000. What's good about this second stimulus is in that 5,500 page bill. I know because I got through a few hundred. I didn't get through a few thousand. I went to business and I went to the 600. What's over there? What's going on over there and over there? But it said that they mandated that when that guidance was issued, that it was incorrect in so much as it violated the provisions of stimulus number 1. So for stimulus number 2, as it's written now, if you qualify for the $10,000 cash advance / grant the first time and receive fewer than $10,000 for your business, guess what? They're going to square up. Hello. Okay, I'm the only one that's excited about it because I got $3,000, so I'm looking for my $7,000. They are going to square up and make that whole. And it doesn't require any additional requirements, not sure about an application submission, if you qualified the first time. So I've received a lot of questions about folks that said, okay, I'm seeing that they're saying they're going to, pay the difference. The answer is yes, but we're still waiting on that guidance, okay? So let's talk about number 2. Not unless there's any questions, because y'all know.
I actually have a question for stimulus bill too, because there's a group that was kind of left out the first time around. You have college students 17 to 23, right? So if they were under 17, then you weren't qualified. I'm wondering if this time around, is there anything in the bill that, or any type of loophole for college students? Because technically 17, 18, you're on your own at college, but when you come back home from school, you're living with your parents most of the times, and those people were left out. Is there anything in the stimulus bill this time around that can help the college student?
So it's depending on if they're being claimed as a dependent. Right now, what I've read is that if you're 17 and under, you can be claimed by your parents as a dependent and thus disqualify you from the stimulus check. But in regards to being a college student and starting a business and getting access to EIDL, or being a college student and getting access to the stimulus check, my question to that college student would be, did you file taxes? And if you didn't file taxes, then at that point, I would say probably not, because your paperwork is not on file with the federal government. And therefore, they cannot determine what your adjusted gross income could be.
Even more.
One group.
Okay,
one group for the economic injury disaster loan round 2 that I want to be especially vigilant about applying for the second round of stimulus is businesses that are sole proprietors. So that means you're doing business, but you have not registered with the state. Limited liability companies, limited liability partnerships. If you are independent contractors, so those are the entrepreneurial people who have worked for Uber, who have worked for Grubhub, who've worked for Instacart, and you've lost some income as an independent contractor. I'm gonna be talking to you, okay? So if you're a nonprofit organization, clergy, most clergy, y'all have 501c3s. That's what your church is organized under, okay? So private nonprofit entities. Now for stimulus number 2, there are different requirements. You must have less than 300 employees. And for Black entrepreneurs, that's most of y'all, because currently there are 2.56 million Black entrepreneurs, but only 109,000 of them, according to the last stimulus, have an employee. So that means a vast majority, over 90% of Black entrepreneurs right now are the only people owning and operating their business, and you have no employees. So if that's you, I'm talking to you. Less than 300 employees. The second thing is the business must have been started by January 2020. Okay, so January 2020, you must have started to operate your business. If you have an LLC and you filed in October, October 2020, I love you. Don't qualify for this business. If you started operating your business on Christmas, December 25th, when you was watching CNN, trying to see if President Trump was going to sign that bill. I forget we on live, y'all. Let me tell you, this ain't, back room talk. And if you started your business at the end of the year, don't qualify. But January 31st, 2020, okay, January 2020, if you started your business, this qualifies for you, okay? And I'm going to talk about those businesses that were started later on in the year, later on in this conversation. And then finally, this wasn't a provision in the first stimulus, but your business must be operating in an area that has a 20% or higher poverty rate, okay? How do you know if you're living in an area with a 20% or higher poverty rate? According to the stimulus bill, they are recommending that you go to the U.S. Census, so census.org, I believe, and that you go and you look, put in your zip code, put in a city where you're owning and operating, and see if that poverty rate is above 20%. So Newark, New Jersey is one. Richmond, Virginia, where I live on the north side, that's one. So 20%. So you want to see if your business is operating in that realm. They're trying to get money in the hands of businesses that will stay open and continue to serve these communities. But most importantly, they're trying to get money in the hands of businesses that during the first round were competing with small businesses like Shake Shack or small businesses like Roof Chris. Or if you watch the NBA, which I don't know if y'all have, I haven't watched the NBA in a couple of years, got the stimulus package, but they were competing with the mom and pop shops that were truly small and micro businesses that shouldn't have to compete with companies that are publicly traded and have strong cash flow statements, have strong balance statements. So they're trying to square up and make that right. So that's the $10,000 cash advance, which is a loan. The application is not available yet. So you can go onto the SBA.gov website, and I want you to continue checking for that application. You can, when you apply for the application, I want folks to know, okay, that when you apply for the cash advance / grant, you're also applying for a loan. All right. So there's a $10,000 cash advance that you do not have to pay back. That is also not taxed. But when you submit that application, you're also applying for a loan. You could get approved for the cash advance. You could get denied for the loan. That's okay. You can still keep the cash advance. You can be approved for the cash advance. It will be wired to your account. Okay. You can also get approved for the loan. You can decline the loan and still keep the cash advance. So for business owners, this is a benefit that's available to you that's essentially cash in hand, okay?
A quick question for you. For business owners that may be afraid, when they receive this money, what do you recommend that they do with it so that they can keep their business afloat or possibly thrive during this economic downturn?
So most businesses happen to pivot during this time. I mean, look, EYL, they was out here in these cities. They was out here doing it up. So they came to DC, had 500 people in a room, right? Last time we talked, or the time before that, I was sitting in a room, sandwiched between like Rashad and Troy. We was having a conversation. And now we pulled up digital, right? Yeah. Rashad and Troy, they got the nice little setup in the back. That all of that is represented a pivot, which means that business owners during this time, during this pandemic, had to figure out a way to change their business operations in such a way that they met their economic need. But we know that when you change the direction of your business, it costs you. right? It costs you. It's going to cost you capital in order to acquire new resources, in order to pivot on your marketing. And so that $10,000 can be used to fund that pivot, to keep your doors open. Let's say that you're operating your business, but the profit doesn't look the same as it did in 2019. You could take that $10,000 cash advance and you could supplement whatever that gap is. Like, we know that there are entrepreneurs out there, specifically Black entrepreneurs out there, that were already working 9-to-5 jobs where their paycheck was separate and unequal. Their entrepreneurial endeavor was a gap that they needed to fill in terms of pay. So when the pandemic hit, let's say you were hit with a furlough, you were hit with a layoff, or you were hit with pay that was cut, and your entrepreneurial endeavor, your business was in the middle of a pivot, this $10,000 grant is meant to help you figure out a way to keep your business doors open. With Black business owners, 42%, a little over 41% projected to go out of business by this year. This $10,000 cash grant can mean the difference between open doors or closed doors. Okay.
Well, what do you think the biggest reason that a lot of those businesses are going under? Because I know a lot of business owners don't go in and look at the numbers or data to see what's possible. But from your experience, what are some of the biggest downfalls you're seeing when people are either picking a business or picking a business model to operate under?
Well, I think it's important that you find an economic need. I think the biggest challenge, there's a couple of challenges. I'm going to speak to Black entrepreneurs right now because I'm one, we are. For Black entrepreneurs, I think the first thing that we needed to realize is that in 2020 and also in 2021, we may have entered 2021 with one plan, right? February and March hit in 2020 when the pandemic was first getting started and things had to change. And a lot of people held tight to the plan that they made at the end of 2019, not realizing that as things change, the plan may change, but the purpose remains the same. I think that Black entrepreneurs specifically, need to realize what the purpose is, the purpose that you're serving, but then separate that from the plan that you need to orchestrate. Secondly, I think it's important that you find an economic need. Specifically, what are people paying right now? Like, what products or the services are they paying in order to meet a pain point? Like, there's a reason why Teledoc is taking off. People aren't going into the medical offices like they were before, right? So they're taking appointments at home. For restaurants, they can't serve people inside of their shop, right? Or inside of their restaurant. They had to open doors outside during the summer in order to supplement income. That's serving an economic need. The needs of your customer changed. So that means that your business function also had to change. So I think that that's one of the issues that we experience, is finding the need and filling it. And I think the second thing is that we need to, especially as a people, be willing to buy from Black-owned businesses unapologetically. There is $1.3 trillion flowing through Black hands every single year. And I think there are Black business owners that are begging, pleading for people to make sometimes the uncomfortable, sometimes the inconvenient decision to say, I'm going to buy for you, even if I have to wait 3 days past what I would have done if I couldn't find your product on Amazon. And that can mean the difference between another month in business or a month closed. And I think the final thing is, and I think it's important for us to talk about, a lot of businesses in Stimulus One kept their businesses open from your tax dollars. Because while everyone was focused on the $1,200 paycheck, Ruth Chris and Shake Shack was focused on $2 million, $5 million of grants, so forgivable loans through the Paycheck Protection Program, that they anticipated being forgiven because they were looking at the stimulus dollar for the businesses, and we were focused on celebrating a $1,200 check. There are a lot of people in this country that pulled up on a policy, but they're expecting other people to pull up by their bootstraps. When money becomes available that you helped invest in because you paid your taxes in 2019, it's important for you to go after those resources because that's your money. That money is just a refund. So I think that those three aspects contributed to closed businesses, and I think those three aspects can contribute to continued open businesses.
No, that's very. I just want to say that's very true what you said, and it's like, yeah, you know, the vast majority of people is focused on the $1,200, $600 check, but business owners like us, like we I don't know if I even got the check. I'm not sure, but we wasn't focused on that. We focused on the SBA loan.
Yeah, that's it.
The SBA loan, the SBA loan hit different. And like I told the story before, we didn't need, fortunately, by the grace of God, we didn't really need the loan. But when MG, the mortgage guy, got his loan, he told us about it. He broke down a plate to us, and I'm like, all right, why not? Let's see if we can get something, because it's 0% interest for 12 months. We can invest that money into the business and buy stuff, and after that, 3% interest. By the time we could just pay it off in full, it's an interest-free loan. Yeah. The amount of money that we received.
Matt told y'all about this post-March.
I was right.
Let me text you right now.
Yo, get him on the line. Yeah.
Yo, MG, man, what's up with you, bro?
Kezia, real quick, because I see some.
The greatest thing about the $10,000 cash advance, you don't have to pay it back. And like I said, you can decline the loan, but the application is 2 pages, and they ask for 2 numbers. What income did you make for PPP for the stimulus number 2? They're going to ask how much money you made between March and December 2019, and they're going to ask you to compare those numbers to how much money you made from March 2020 to December 20. And if you're able to demonstrate a 30% economic loss, then at that point, you are eligible potentially for that benefit. And so that's important to know. Probably what MG, the mortgage guy, was talking about was the Paycheck Protection Program. And there were a lot of entrepreneurs that were a little hesitant, myself included, to apply for the Paycheck Protection Program. Because when you hear forgivable loans, you ask, but what's on the other side of forgiveness? You know, I know Jesus said forgive 70 times 7, but the way that Sam, your uncle, is set up, he might, if he don't forgive you, he come to knock on your door and garnish your wages, okay? So it's like, I need to know what's on the other side of forgiveness. Is it financial grace? Thank you, Jesus. So like the guidance has been issued for PPP stimulus number 1, also stimulus number 2. And one of the things that's especially exciting about PPP number 2 is that they really outline those sole proprietors or single member LLCs for which a lot of Black entrepreneurs are. Like, what are the requirements for forgiveness? But then also, what resources do you have available to you if you can't count your payroll, right? Because you're a sole proprietor, so you're paying yourself, or you're a single member LLC, so you have nobody on your payroll and you're not filed as a C corporation. What type of resources are available to me? And one of the things that I really like about the Paycheck Protection Program, which is probably what MG was talking about, is that you have to be connected to a bank. So that means that you must not be storing your business revenues underneath your mattress. Okay, so it needs to go in a bank, and that's where you're going to pull your financial statements. And you want to take a look at if you've had at least 25% or higher losses from your business, so in revenue, and look at your quarters. So like if quarter 1 2019 was $5,000 and quarter 1 2020 was $500, you know that that's higher than 25%. You want to look at each quarter and you want to identify those quarters where you saw losses. If you have payroll, if you don't have payroll, you want to pull out that tax form again. You want to pull out that form 1040, and you want to pull out your Schedule C, and you want to look at what was your net profit for that year. And then you want to divide that by 12. You take whatever number that is and you multiply it by 2.5. Okay. So if it's $5,000, y'all don't have my, let me see, y'all. Look, I was a poli-sci major, so I always have to pull my calculator out. Okay. So y'all just give me a second. So if it was $5,000, when you multiply that by 2.5, that's $12,500. For those who are the sole owner of your business, you can use a benefit called the Ownership Compensation Replacement. Okay, so the OCR. The Ownership Compensation Replacement allows for independent contractors, sole proprietors, single member LLCs to apply for a Paycheck Protection Program or a Paycheck Protection Program forgivable loan. Use those resources to compensate you for the revenue, right? So for the business income that you lost due to COVID. They can allow you to do this up to $20,833. So that's the maximum amount of benefit that you can get in forgivable loans. And the greatest thing about it is the forgiveness application is one page if it's $20,833 or fewer. It's one page. It's called the Easy Form. And you essentially self-certify that you use the money to supplement the income you lost because of COVID.
My graduates from my school being Forbes, bag drop.
Bag drop.
A mic drop, bag drop.
Bag drop.